right, welcome. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the OSBA Executive Committee meeting for Monday, December 11th. We have all executive committee members present. So our first order of business, and I'm a little distracted because I have my headset on, but there's a lot of outside noise. So I'm sorry if I sound a little odd. I'll do my best. So first order of business is item 2 to approve the agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda this morning? Scott.
Madam President, thank you. I approve the agenda as presented, with the only correction being under agenda item 5, correction of acting executive director Emily Nischek's first name.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I'm having trouble.
No, so Madam President, I move the agenda be approved as presented, with the only correction being correction of acting executive director Emily Nischek's first name as it is spelled in agenda item 5. Thank
you for that. All right. So with the correction to the spelling of Emily's, do I hear a second to approve the agenda?
Madam Chair, I second.
Thank you. Right. So any other discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda with the stated correction, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved. All right, so we'll move on to item 3. So also I want to take a moment here. Let me take a look here. Okay, all right. So we'll move on to item 3, consider a recommendation to the board regarding the review of the investigation of anonymous complaint. So I do want to give, we do have our counsel here, Michael Porter. If you wanted to provide context in a general sense in the motion, if you feel it's appropriate, I wanted to give you an opportunity to do that. This pertains to a discussion that we had, I believe, in our last meeting, correct? Is there anything that you wanted to say for the record, or should we just move forward with the motion?
I think you can probably just move forward with the motion. You'll recall that we had an executive session for the purpose of an attorney-client privilege discussion last week. That discussion concluded, and the privileged nature of that discussion should remain privileged.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, Sammy, and then Scott.
I have a question before moving. I would like to ask the council, Madam President, if it is appropriate for me to ask if the motion as is should be moved with that the council has presented, or if we need to consider changing the word anonymous. And the nature of the question here, the word anonymous may present different scope of the complaint and how it is processed in terms of whistleblower protection laws and applicable bylaws and policies. And for that sense, I'm wondering if we should call it out as a whistleblower complaint, since there might be a different definition. So I want to defer to legal counsel if we should sustain the same proposed motion, or if we should call it whistleblower for the sake of ensuring complying with applicable laws relevant to the nature of the complaint. So
I think as long as everyone knows what complaint is being considered, the wording of that as a whistleblower complaint or as an anonymous complaint is not of a legal consequence.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
As such, Madam President, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Sammy. Go ahead.
I wanted to move, but happy to defer to Scott if that's the motion.
I actually just had a quick point of question for outside counsel Mike Porter. So if I may, Madam President, Mike, I guess, or following up on our conversation last week, just noting I had two questions. One, in alignment with item 3, would you have any projected ETA for when you anticipate, I know I can see the smile there. I'm guessing no at the moment, but I was just curious more about a tentative time frame for when this information might be available to the board. And then 2, kind of again in alignment with the executive session that we had last week, when would those materials or will they be made available to the full board? Thank you.
So with respect to the first item, I think it's very difficult to predict how long an investigation will take when I think that you have to look at it in terms of probably a couple months before you could get through it. And I always tell people with investigations, almost no matter how long you say they will be, they tend to go longer than you hope. But I think you have to assume it will take some time. Could you repeat the second question?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Your first question was in alignment with my thoughts, but I guess just ensuring that we're clear, I think for the full board and certainly for the balance of the executive committee, just setting realistic expectations on timeframe. And then two, the other question I had was when, if at all, we would make those other materials that were presented to the executive committee in executive session to the full board, assuming there would be similar parameters around it.
Great. I wanted to make sure I understood the materials that we submitted as privileged to you. We anticipate that we would probably do that before the meeting. I think the meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, and we'd probably do it 24 hours in advance. We do it through a secure link. I've learned that Chrome is the better way to get those, and we will have somebody available to assist if there's any problems accessing the material. But that's the thinking.
All right. Scott, you have your hand raised still. Are you? Was
Yeah,
that the end of your?
Madam President, I'm prepared to make a motion if there is no further questions from my colleagues.
All right. All right. You may proceed with your motion.
And thank you, Madam President. I move the executive, as per agenda item 3, I move the committee recommend the board authorize at the direction of the chair, acting executive director, and in consultation with the independent counsel, the review of the investigation of the anonymous complaint. The review will be conducted by a third party and make any recommendations deemed appropriate based on the outcome or policies implicated by the complaint. Thank you.
Madam
Thank you.
Chair, I second.
All right. Thank you. I've got first and a second. Any other discussion? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. All right, so we'll move on to item 4. Consider a recommendation to the board authorizing the acting executive director to take steps to address any compliance issues. So I did want to, I know the nature of this is primarily confidential. If there's anything that needs to be stated or wants that, Emily, did you want it to state for the record, or do we not want to do that?
I think I'm okay, and it's clear to me.
Okay. Right. All right. All right. So do I hear a motion to approve? So I'll go with Chris first.
Yes, Madam Chair, I move the committee recommend the board authorize the acting executive director to take compliance steps as outlined in the investigative report or as deemed appropriate by the acting executive director to address any compliance issues that have been identified.
Thank you. And do I hear a second? Scott?
Thank you, Madam President. I'll provide the second.
All right. Any discussion? All right, seeing none. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right, we'll move on to item 5. To consider a recommendation to the board regarding the employment contract proposal for acting director Emily Nishik. So I wasn't clear if the executive committee had received a copy of the employment contract. Was that something that you all had received prior to?
I have not seen it, Madam
I
President.
have not. No.
Okay, so we do have Randy here. Randy did assist with the creation of the employment contract. What's the best course of action? Should we share this by email with the executive committee or share on the screen? Whatever is we feel is appropriate.
From my perspective, you can share it however you want to share it.
Okay. All right. All right. So I can well actually I can share. Can I send it to her now and have her share screen, and then we could chat a little bit about it, or give executive committee members a chance to look at it and ask any questions? We do that. Okay. All right. Just a moment. do that. Let's see. No. Okay, well, now I'm gonna forward this to you. Okay, so while we were preparing to get that shared, is there anything that you want to share, Randy, in terms of our process to create that proposal before we
Sure.
see it? Okay.
Sure. Thank you for having me. We started out with Jim Green's existing employment agreement and made certain modifications to it to address the distinctions between a permanent executive director and an acting executive director. So you will see that language in section 3 regarding term is a little bit different. The language in section 5 regarding the tax sheltered annuity is somewhat different. We eliminated the retention incentive and we modified the termination section so that it made more sense with an acting executive director. And then my understanding is that the chair shared that with Emily. There was some minor back and forth, and we've arrived at an agreement that I think is legally sufficient and will serve its intended purposes, obviously subject to the executive committee's review and the full board's review.
Thank you, Randy. Sammy?
Thank you, Madam President. So as we're waiting for the documents, and I noted the sections, maybe Randy, I'll ask you to repeat the sections once we have the documents with us. But at the same time, I want to make a brief statement and then ask you a question if you have the answer to it. I really appreciate Emily's work. I've observed her work throughout the legislative roadshow and supporting the board during these times. So I have full confidence in continuing her work in the time being, and look forward to have this discussion about the contract. One thing I want to ask in addition to my statement, just sharing my full support, is Randy, if you could share the financial, and I'm sorry I'm putting you on the spot there, but if there's any financial delta compared to Jim Green's, if you may share that, or compared to the existing executive director contract, do you have a lump sum or do you have any deltas that you can highlight?
Sonia, I think that's a question for you. I can tell you that the annual gross salary in the new agreement is $250,000, and there's a tax sheltered annuity of $19,000 per year, but I don't happen to know the numbers of the previous agreement.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I can address that. So I think Jim's, and are you referring to Jim's annual salary in comparison? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Right, clear. So his last stated salary was at 192,000, I believe. And then there were other parts of his contract, the tax sheltered annuity. I believe that his was that was 19,000. I believe that was quarterly, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have it right in front of me, with some other additional expenditures or expenses that were accounted for in his contract. As Randy mentioned, there were some things that were not included that will not pertain to or pertinent for acting executive director. But we did the things that we included that were appropriate for this contract. So hoping we can take a look at this really quickly so can answer any other questions. Lynell, are you able to share that on the screen? And perhaps we can also send to the executive committee members as well.
I just got it.
Okay. Okay. Right. Okay. Okay. All right, so we'll just kind of scroll through, and Randy, again, if you wanted just to go over some particular things that are similar and then things that were different, so now that we have a visual, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, I won't go over every minute detail. I'll go
Sure.
over my view about what's material for you. And I think
Okay.
the first thing that is material is the term of the contract, which is in section 3.
Okay.
We simplified that to simply have a start date of November 13th, and it continues in effect until it's terminated by either party as provided in the agreement. We'll get to section 13, which is the termination provision, shortly. The salary provision is straightforward. It's paid in equal monthly installments on the OSBA's regularly scheduled paydays. The tax sheltered annuity language is largely the same. It's payable annually on the anniversary of the agreement if Emily remains as the acting executive director, and it's adjusted by the cost of living adjustment applied to her salary. We deleted what had been section 6, which was the retention incentive, thinking that that was not appropriate or necessary for this particular agreement. And then I would scroll down to section 13. This provision is significantly shortened, and essentially this is a at-will arrangement. It's contemplated that Emily will return to the deputy executive director position if she's no longer the acting executive director, and if she's terminated from employment while the acting executive director, she'll be paid 3 months of gross pay less deductions, which seemed, I think, reasonable to all involved, although obviously that is your call. So it's a simplified agreement in some, makes more sense for an acting executive director position. If and when you hire a permanent executive director, you may want to do some things differently.
Great, thank you, Randy. All right. Let's see if there's any questions. Any questions from the executive committee? Just scrolling to see any hands raised.
Madam President, if I may.
Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, so appreciate the contract and obviously first time reviewing it. Do we call out, and I guess I know that we have language in there that states that if Emily returns back to the deputy ED role, she's free to do so, but do we clarify that, is that just step back at her existing salary, or do we have any COLAs, or how do we address the compensation should she return back to her originally hired position?
We didn't address that. We could. I think what's contemplated is that she returns to her previous salary with any regular adjustments.
Yeah, that was my, thank you, Scott. That's a good clarification. Did you have anything else to add, Scott?
No, it was just going to be similar to what Randy and you called out, just that should Emily return back to that ED role, it just clarifies that she moves back to her prior salary with whatever, I think COLA, just so that it's clear in the contract what those terms are.
We can certainly add clarifying language to that effect if that's the executive committee's wish.
And sorry again, one other quick salary related question, noting that the annual salary is based on 250 per year. Is there a bonus, I guess, or I'll just put this out there, a thank you? So should Emily return back to that role, noting that she'll be compensated at the $250,000 annual salary rate, but is there any sort of an incentive or any sort of goals or objectives built around her remaining in the position or anything of that nature while we continue to look for long-term replacement. Does that question make sense?
It does make sense. Yeah.
Um,
That's not, oh, go ahead, Brandy. I'm sorry.
No, there's nothing in that. Typically with an acting or interim position, the person serves unless and until either she or the board decides otherwise. There's no retention incentive, but again, if that's the wish of the executive committee or the full board, that can be added back in.
Thank you. Okay, I'll go on to Emily. You have a question?
Sorry, I was getting wild with my clicking. My question is the amount of the salary, is that calculated like by she's doing the deputy executive role too and the executive director, or how was that kind of calculated, I guess is my question.
I suppose I will speak for, that was what the proposed amount that Emily had drafted. And so I don't, have any other information behind the selection of that amount, other that was her proposal. So it is part of her proposal to the board for approval. So, and Emily, you can go ahead if you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, thanks, Emily. I did some research on the pay of other executive directors across the country in similar roles. And it seemed more in alignment with that. I think especially with the size and scope of OSBA is significantly larger than a lot of the other school boards associations across the country. So that was sort of where my initial proposal came from, was from that research.
Thank you. Okay, Chris, I see your hand raised.
I guess this isn't necessarily pertinent to discussion of this contract, but it does raise the issue. Something for us to think about. Maybe Emily has thoughts on this now about searching for a deputy executive director or putting someone in that position, or if there's been any discussion in that regard.
I am working on a interim plan to, it might be structured slightly differently. And it's something that I haven't had a chance to fully discuss with the team. But it is something, I'm not looking at hiring externally and bringing in another person to serve in that role. And it likely will be structured slightly differently than we have in the past to meet our current need.
Chris, did you still have another question?
Well, yeah, it's a different question. I can ask it now or defer to Emily, whichever.
Oh, why don't you go ahead and we'll have Emily go next.
Okay, I just I think I think I know the answer, but I want to just clarify that there is no limitation to this contract at this point, that the executive committee can, this is until and if something else changes. Is that correct? There's no time frame on this particular contract.
That's correct.
Thank you, Randy. Emily, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I would just like to voice a concern, and this has nothing to do with Emily or her capabilities, but this is like a 50% increase over, or, you know, it's a pretty 25% increase over the previous contract, and we're already kind of in financial, you know, we've been really mindful of the budget, so I just kind of wanted to point that out.
Thank you for that, that concern, raising that concern. Want to make sure I hear from everyone. Sammy, do you have any other comments or questions?
Frankly, Emily shared exactly what was on my mind. Emily Smith shared exactly what was on my mind. I'm very supportive of this report, this contract as it stands right now, and with any needed clarification for sure. But definitely, I look forward. We need to keep the ship moving, and this is a crucial part of keeping the ship moving. And I look forward to working collaboratively with you, Madam President, and with both Secretary Treasurer of 23 and Secretary Treasurer of 24 to have an assessment of the financials. As Emily Nishek mentioned, that decisions will be made about an interim deputy that might be internal. Definitely, we want to be also supportive of any decisions Emily needs to do to build capacity within the organization and see what does the whole picture look like in terms of financials. But definitely an outlook on our financials in tandem with an outlook of our financials, including this contract, in tandem of what we need to do to serve the membership is going to be an important and crucial conversation. I would propose that the executive committee and both the treasurers of this year and next year prioritize within the next few months.
Thank you, Sammy. Scott, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. I guess my thoughts are in alignment. And I would certainly anticipate that, obviously I will not be on the board when the agency or the association proceeds with seeking out a permanent replacement, but I would anticipate there would likely need to be a salary analysis performed similar to what Emily has done. But I also think similar as what Emily Smith has commented on, I would anticipate that a portion of this increase, while it is, I would just say significant as a percentage, is likely due to the fact that Emily is having to fill on an interim role. And I guess I want to be thoughtful and respectful of the fact that she raised her hand as willing to step into that. And I do think there's certainly a cost associated with that service and to keep the association moving forward. So I think just from the lens that I see it, we're getting some visibility to sort of what I guess the tangible cost is by seeing that cost delta. So that's my approach.
Thank you, Scott. If I could just take a moment, I also and then in coordination with drafting and supporting getting this employment proposal completed, I'm also in agreement. I think that I see that is a 50% bump. Also, I do see what Emily has taken on and done quite capably. I feel that it is representative of the work that we were asking her to do, going from one position to the other. And so I'm also in agreement and also supportive of their contract as it stands, the proposal as it stands. So are there any other comments before we? Scott, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Madam President. I was just going to make a motion related to the contract.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so Madam President, I would like to make a motion to approve, to forward the recommendation of the employment contract for acting executive director Emily Nischik to the OSBA Board of Directors for review. The only consideration is I would propose that we clarify what salary she returns to and any cost of living adjustments, just so that it's clear in the contract documents if and when Emily returns to the DED role, that we clarify what salary it is and any potential COLA components of that as well.
Thank you, Scott. Do I hear a second?
I second.
All right, that's seconded by Sammy. Any other discussion?
Madam Chair, I would like to ask for unanimous consent if there's no objection. I'm not sure if I heard the immediate past president mention the next special meeting or the next special meeting on December 19th. So just want to make sure we amend that if there's no objection.
Sammy, for a point of clarification, I would anticipate it would be prior to the end of the calendar year, just so that the board can have a chance to review and approve it. So I was anticipating it was to be December 19th.
So yeah, okay. So with that clarification, all those in favor of approving, please signify by saying aye.
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 We're approving to send this to the full board, right?
Yes, we're approving the recommendation to be shared with the full board for a vote.
Okay,
Yes.
thanks.
All right. Did we get everyone vote?
Sorry, I keep losing connection. I vote yes.
Okay. All right. All right. Just for the record, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Well, I just couldn't hear everybody. Scott, aye. yay or nay?
Correct, yes, aye.
Emily, yay or nay?
Yes.
Sammy, yay or nay?
Yes.
And did I get everybody? I'm having so much, I'm sorry, it's so loud in here. Okay, so all those, and so we have consent then. So the motion is approved. All right, give me just a moment. It's a lot of noise here. Let me go to my notes real quick here. All right. All right. Okay, so we're going to move to item 6, review December special board meeting agenda. So I'm going to look for my notes here, and Emily, I'll have you just kind of start off with our template.
Okay. So we have put together a draft agenda that we wanted to put before you all for discussion today. We have the information that was discussed in our last executive session with Mike Porter, who will be delivering the information to the full board. And as we discussed earlier today, they'll also receive a packet of information prior to that meeting that they can review so that they have everything sitting in front of them before going into executive session. Item number 4 will be taking action on that. And then item number 5 is, oops, sorry, I'm on the wrong one here. Will be taking, it's considering the attorney-client privileged information. Sorry, this threw me off, Linnell. It's not Randy Geller for that section for item number 5.
For
for
your contract?
Under the attorney-client privileged section, that should be Bob Staringer.
But this is for your contract?
Yeah, so that would be for her contract, and then we would also have Bob speaking to the governance.
My contract won't be under item 5 for the attorney-client privileged information. That would be Bob Staringer.
Okay.
And
So,
what is
so
it?
we'll need an additional item for my contract, which is item number 6.
And is that under executive session or no?
No.
That won't
Okay.
be under. Okay.
And Bob's conversation is broadly about.
That is his 2 legal determinations. And I don't know if that needs to be privileged. The documentation he's sharing.
It is. It should be
is?
under that. It's
Okay.
my understanding. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Then we'll look there.
Okay.
And then item number 6 would be my contract.
Which is not under executive session.
No.
Scott, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. I guess, so Linnell, to that point, I would look to Madam President and Emily. So should we want to adhere to it, any performance related issues regarding Emily in her role as the acting ED could be discussed in executive session, but so long as we list it, but any salary or any of that must be negotiated and approved in open session. I just want to make sure that in the event, and I'll just be honest, I know that the board has circled around that. And so we've, in prior executive sessions during this process, I would just want to make sure we've got some good sideboards to know that there is no conversation around salary or salary approval in executive session.
Yeah, we got that. Thank you, Scott. Okay. All right. That's 9. So we have 9 items. Is that all items we have listed? I thought we had one more bullet. Okay.
Oh.
We have governance. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I didn't mean to skip. Go ahead, Emily. I can't remember where you were.
So after that, we have item number 7, which is the OSBA board agreements. Sonia, did you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I do. So what we did is that we took a look at all of the communication we've had from board members, our previous meeting on the 12th. And what we've done is we've consolidated items of discussion. And under our OSBA board agreements, we'll have everything from a public meeting law to email communication to other concerns that board members raise. It would fall under that umbrella. And so we will have a discussion where we'll be sure to go back and look at the notes and be sure that we are touching on different issues and concerns that board members have had. The same goes for ex officio board member eligibility. We will also have a discussion on based on concerns or things that were brought up by board members. So these are really placeholders for discussion, but there'll be several items. There may be several items of discussion underneath each of these agenda items. Communication also pertains to a concern raised by executive committee member regarding recording of OSBA speech at an annual convention and the use of that. So that falls under that umbrella. Governance falls under other concerns, eligibility concerning eligibility for OSBA president-elect, where we can have that discussion under that agenda item. So I hope that's clear or makes sense. Well, that's how I thought would be best to approach this, with lots of different issues at hand that we need to discuss. So happy to entertain any questions. I don't see any hands raised. Okay. Sammy, go ahead.
Madam President, I want to be just mindful that as an executive committee, we're proposing this agenda, and I know my esteemed colleague, immediate past president as an officer, also board member, moved for 2 agenda items. I want to make sure at the full board meeting, I want to make sure that he's comfortable that when we're doing this consensus around this agenda as presented now, we're happy to move forward with the full board observing this agenda as recommended here if we recommend this. So I want to provide an opportunity for us as an executive committee to just have consensus around that moving forward.
If I may, Madam President, I'm comfortable with the agenda as presented.
Okay, thank you. So we're asking just for a thumbs up, Sammy, consensus from the executive committee. So if I could just
Absolutely.
get a thumbs up if everyone's in agreement. I'm gonna scroll. I can see everyone. I didn't see. Okay. All right. All right. So are there any other items or discussion for the good of the order? I think we're at the end of our agenda. So materials will go out on what date? Will we have the materials for the board for the special meeting? Will that go out?
Monday morning.
Okay. A week from today?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. All right, thank you, everyone. We are adjourned. Thanks for your time today. Have a good one.
Thank you, everyone.